Do you find yourself spending months on books that seem to really drag on and you begin to feel like you may never be able to finish them? And sometimes you actually end up never getting to finish them. And even when you somehow miraculously go about finishing them, you find yourself spending at least 3 to 6 months on one book, and those are just for the books you actually did come around finishing. Now in this video, I'll be showing you my process on how I finished 250 to 300 page books in the space of a few days to about a week. Now reading books has one of the greatest return of investment on your time compared to other sources of information. This is because most times people who write books are people who actually distill at least 10 to 20 years of experience within a particular field, which is polished and refined into a 200 to 300 page book, which would normally take the average person 4 to 6 hours to consume. In essence, you are actually downloading 15 to 20 years in the space of 4 to 6 hours. Now, to make this video as helpful as possible, I actually broke down the 5 areas that you need to address to effectively carry out this feat of finishing a book a week, which include your mindset, your lifestyle, your strategy, the mediums, and finally, some reading hacks to help you down this path of reading a book a week. Now, let's get into the video. Like with all things in life, everything starts in your mind. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right." To actually work on your mindset to accomplish this feat of reading a book a week, you need to first believe that you can actually read a book a week. I've actually seen some people that do not actually believe it's possible. But the first step to being able to accomplish this is to first change your mindset on the possibility and also finding a good reason why you want to read a book a week. Because he that has a why can actually bear almost anyhow. Working on your mindset involves you asking these 3 important questions. Now, the first question is, why are you reading? Are you just reading for entertainment, information, or for understanding? Whatever you pick within these 3 instances will determine the level of attention that the book you're reading would command. The next question is, do you enjoy the book? I've noticed that I take far longer to finish books that I do not find interesting or doesn't really vibe with me, which is actually a no-brainer. If you are interested in something, you are more likely to stick with it. Now, if reading a book a week is a new habit, I'll recommend that you start with the book that's talking about a topic that you deeply find interesting, so you can then begin to develop the habits. Because if you have not built the muscles or discipline to stick to reading a book until you finish it within a week, you may not really be able to accomplish this feat. Books that you are already interested in, you are more likely to stick with and see it through until completion. You might even end up finishing it within 3 days, even if you are really deep into a book. The next important question is, how can this book change your life? Some books have the potential to completely transform your life. Some books have the potential to only enlighten you, and some books are honestly an abject waste of time. Personally, before I tried to read a book, I tried to create some kind of expectation for that book on how the book would actually change my life, if it will lead to more understanding in a particular field or stimulate my imagination in an area that I find interesting. Actually, that's why I tend to read more of self-help books. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot gain value from other types of books like fiction. I mean, actually, there's a fictional book that I read once that completely transformed the way I viewed women, and my respect for women literally skyrocketed after reading that book. It's actually called 1,000 Splendid Suns, and it talks about the struggles of a lady that was actually given away in marriage at a really young age after the death of her mother. Okay, I don't want to spoil the book for you, but it's really interesting, and it just opened my eyes to see how women were treated way before women even had rights, and it helped me to be more empathetic towards women and what they actually go through in a patriarchal society sometimes. And if you actually read the book, I'll actually love to see what you think about the book in the comments. Lifestyle. Achieving the goal of reading a book a week will not happen miraculously because you wish to read a book a week. James Clear once said, "You do not rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your systems." You need to strategically adjust your lifestyle to accommodate your new habit. And one of the ways that I actually do this in my life is through something called time blocking. Now, what is time blocking? Time blocking is basically you carving out a particular time within your day that you spend on a particular task or a particular project. In this case, reading. A typical 250-page book would normally take you 4 to 6 hours to finish. Now, if you were to just block out 1 hour out of your day to focus on just reading, you would ideally be able to finish a book within a week. But if we're really being honest, we do not exactly live in an ideal world. That's actually what will lead to the next point, which is converting dead time to a lifetime. Now, what is dead time? Now, dead time is time that, due to certain circumstances, is easily wasted. An example of dead time is when you are waiting for the bus or you have to wait on a queue for something. Now, converting dead time into a lifetime is when you use those dead time moments to actually read a book. So instead of just looking out into space while you're waiting for something, you can just easily pick up your phone or pick up your physical book and read and make progress. Now, that's basically you converting dead time into a lifetime. Now, this concept of dead time and a lifetime, I got it from the book Mastery by Robert Greene, a very interesting read actually. Another lifestyle hack that I use is your bedtime routines. Now, your bedtime is actually one of the best times to insert a new habit. It could be right when you wake up or right before you go to bed. You can either decide to read a page, 10 pages, 5 pages, a chapter. Now, it varies for every individual, but personally, I find that I actually enjoy reading right before I go to bed. Now, this might sound weird because I think when I read before I go to bed, it helps me to give my mind something to think upon while I'm asleep. Another lifestyle hack that I use is something called tracking. Lord Kelvin once said, "What you cannot measure, you cannot improve." The process of you trying to read a book a week is basically the process of you trying to improve your reading habit. And one of the ways that you can actually do this is actually by tracking your progress with this habit. There are actually a lot of apps out there that can help you track habits, but personally, that I like to use is something called Grow. It actually helps you to track the days that you engage the habit and gives you a graphical representation on your progress within that habit as you progress with that habit. Now, I have two main strategies that I use for reading, and the strategy that you will use is heavily dependent on your life circumstance within the moment of you reading that book. Now, the first strategy is either you binge the book or you use something called a slow burn process. Now, binging a book is basically when you finish a book within a day, essentially blocking out or devoting really large chunks of time within your day to ensure that you complete the book faster. It's kind of like when people spend hours and hours of their day to binge watch movies. In this case, you're actually binge reading a book. While the slow burn process is when you break down the time that you want to use to read the book into multiple days of, let's say, 7 days or 6 days. This is when time blocking and converting dead time to a lifetime really comes in handy. Because if you're really busy, it'll be quite difficult for you to just binge a book, while the slow burn process is a much more feasible approach for people who are really busy and can't really devote enough time to binge a book and read it within a day or within 3 days at most. There are 3 main mediums that you could use to read a book. It could be physical, it could be using an ebook, or it could be using an audiobook. These formats have their pros and their cons, but the format that I find to help me read books at, if I do say so myself, sometimes astronomically fast rate is audiobooks. This is because you can actually gauge the speed to which you listen to a book. Sometimes I actually tend to listen to books at 2x speed, but that's usually when I'm reading for information, to actually have a feel for the book before I go into a much more deeper study of the book. But if you want to finish books faster and really have a feel of what a book is saying, audiobooks tend to do it for me. Reading hacks. Now, a reading hack that you could use is using a pacer. Now, what is a pacer? A pacer is basically an object that you use to gauge the pace at which you read. A pacer can actually be like your pen or even your finger. And the whole purpose of a pacer is to help you fight against something called regressive reading. Regressive reading is when you are reading a page, but you find yourself looking back at what you've already read before. Now, that's why sometimes you could actually spend like a really long time on just one page and you find out that you are not really moving anywhere because of regressive reading. But when you use a pacer, you're actually forcing your eyes to track the object. It could be your finger or it could be your pen while it moves, thereby preventing you from actually going back and looking at what you've seen before. Now, that makes the rate at which you read much faster and much more effective when you read in succession books that are within the same topic. Now, why is this helpful? This is because when you read books that are within the same topics, or you increase your knowledge base on a particular topic, when you read books again on the same topic, you don't actually have to spend more time trying to understand concepts that you've already understood based on the previous knowledge or the background knowledge that you already have on the book. You find out that books that you are much more conversant with on the topics, you've would actually read them much faster than books that are completely new. Another hack that you can also use is something called skimming. Now, this is when you just quickly glance through the book and to know the key points and the key headings and basically have a general overview of what the book is talking about. So when you are actually doing the actual reading, you know what to look out for and what you're looking for, and you know what to disregard that is not exactly relevant to what you are currently searching for. Now, personally, I believe that one of the main reasons why you should read a book is to solve your most prevailing problems. And sometimes while you're reading a book, they may not really talk about things that are addressing the problem that you want to solve. And those parts of the book, it might be important at some point, but I try to look at it within the lens of what I want to achieve. And that helps me to actually separate the wheat from the chaff from the pages of what I read. And if you want to go deeper into this concept, I actually made a worksheet for this video, and you can actually find it within the description of the video. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to enjoy this video about how I trick my brain to be insanely productive. And with that, guys, remember to always keep it real. Bye, guys.